Hello, I'm here. So it's been a wild ride. Where do I begin? So I moved. That's where we are right now. No more videos in my truck. And so what happened is my grandfather died. Yeah, that was a wild moment in time too. My grandfather, brilliant man, graduated high school at 16, Morehouse College, started working at IBM as a computer engineer, and worked on projects such as the laptop. Yeah. So brilliant man, brilliant man. But yeah, here I am live. I know it's been a long time, and now I'm back like on an actual camera, and I'm an iPhone camera, and I'm ready to tell some crime. I got some crazy things for the new year. Hi, I'm Holliday, and this is Chloroform and Chillz, and I am in my pajamas, and I am on my this couch that my sister decided to pick out for us in our new apartment. Today, you have a true crime case. This story begins in Grand Junction, Colorado. It starts off with a man named Warren Barnes. Warren Barnes is a man that is unhoused. He is 69 years old. He's a book reader in front of a bridal shop, and all the townspeople in the small town of Grand Junction call him the Reader. Out of nowhere, Warren goes missing, which is very odd. Warren never is missing. He always shows up in front of the bridal shop every day to read and just enjoy the environment around the town. What is so lovely to me is that the townspeople, actually the owner of the bridal shop, she put in a missing persons report for Warren. And I thought that was amazing because usually people see homeless people go missing and they don't even think like, oh, maybe he just went to another town. Or they don't think like, oh, maybe something is wrong. And for somebody that has shown up every day and done what they do every day, there's no different change in activity or behavior. This was odd for Warren not to be there. They put in a missing persons report for Warren. Once Warren goes missing, that's when another situation is going on in the town with a kid named Brian Cohee Jr. His parents are Brian Sr. Cohee and Terry Cohee. His parents are business owners in the town. Brian is 19 years old and he has autism and ADHD. One night, something happens with Brian where he is going for a drive and he's just trying to clear his head. He's depressed a little bit and he gets his car stuck in a pond or a lake or something. So he's panicking a little bit that he got his car stuck. So he flags down a bystander who's driving by. The bystander lets him get inside his car because he's wet, he's shivering, and the bystander actually lets Brian call his mother and father. Once his parents arrive, his parents also call the police because they're assuming that Brian is hurt since he said that his car got stuck in this pond. Police show up and Brian's parents show up and they're still wondering, how did you get yourself in this situation? Oh, if you hear anything, that's Theo. Police wonder if Brian is actually intoxicated or anything for his car to get stuck in the pond because they're like, how did you get your car stuck in the water? I think they gave him a breathalyzer or something. It came back negative. He was fully fine. That was the least of Brian's worries that night. Police actually noticed that Brian's car is bleeding. Let's say that. It has some red stains in the back of it in the trunk area. And they're asking Brian and his parents, like, how did this happen? Like, what happened? And Brian tells his parents that, oh, I cut my hand or something and it must have got on the back of the car. Police write it off like it's nothing. So the next day, Brian's father is cleaning out his car and Brian's mother is cleaning out Brian's room, which I think is shocking for 19 years old. Why is your mom cleaning out your room? But whatever, not going to go there. Brian at this moment right now is at his friend's house telling his friends what happened the night before about his car getting stuck in the pond. Brian's mother, while cleaning up her room, I have to get kind of close with it. Listen, Brian's mother, while cleaning up her room, what do you think she finds in his closet? What do you think she finds in his closet? This woman finds a human head and hands in her son's closet, wrapped up in plastic trash bags. Oh my God. Wrapped up in plastic trash bags, and it has maggots, and it's starting to smell. The mother freaks out because she's found a human head and hands. Okay? A human head and hands. And she doesn't even know whose human head and hands this is. So immediately she calls her husband and says, you need to get back to the house right now. Right fucking now. Okay? And then the next call is she calls the police. And I love this because they didn't try to cover this shit up. They didn't try to put it in their backyard. They didn't call their son to notify him that we found this human head and hands. No. What they did is they called the police immediately. And then they devised a plan to bring Brian back home so he could talk to police and be formally arrested. But first, before creating a plan, the mother took the bag and put the bag in the kitchen sink so it can be out in the open so everybody can see, like, yo, we got a human head and hands in here. Police have arrived. Brian, mother, and father, and Brian's brother, because, Brian has a sibling, he has a younger brother. They get the younger brother to call Brian saying, hey, I need my car back. I need my car back, so you need to bring it back home. So Brian brings it back home, and he is met with the police. The mother and father tell the police before he gets there, hey, we have found some questionable things in our son's room. We need you guys to take it from here. At first, the police are not taking anything they are saying serious. They think it's like a joke, and I'm guessing because in Grand Junction, they probably don't have problems like this as much. They probably think, we have murders, but not in like this. Brian is there on scene now. The police want to ask him some questions. Brian's parents tell him, please cooperate with the police. Brian sounds like he has a little bit of an attitude, and he says, I am. And the police ask Brian, they say, hey, can you tell us what your mom found in your room? She found some questionable things. And he says, yeah. And the police officer says, well, can you tell me what those things are? And in that moment, you see Brian switch. He does this weird switch where it's like, yeah, I'm done playing around. I'm now going to be this evil person. He switches into, I don't want to call him a monster, but it's you know what? You just have to see it. I'm going to play the clip. Okay. The officer asks, what do you have in your room? What did your mother find? And immediately Brian switches and says, a human head and hands. Not laughing, not joking. It's like a switch. So I'm going to play it right now for you.
Come on, man. Not much. Cooperate. I am going to cooperate. Okay. So parents have some concerns of some stuff they may have found in your room?
Yeah, I believe so.
And what would it be?
A human head and hands.
Like, for real human head and hands?
Yes.
The police officer then asks Brian, whose human head and hands do you have in your house right now? Before the police goes and checks it out, Brian says, oh, that fellow that went missing. What? He was like, okay, who went missing? What's his name? And then he says, Warren Burns. He was like, I have his wallet in my car. Okay. Police then go inside Brian's house. They go into his kitchen. They see a bag, and it's double bagged. And the police officer in the video goes through the layers of the trash bag, open it, and then he sees a human head and hands. And even the police officer is shocked. I'm assuming that the police officer has never seen anything like this. So he's like, oh, this is for real. Like, we have a killer right outside who just dismembered a random man, and this man is also missing. The police officer comes back and confirms that there is a real human head and hands inside the sink of the Cohee family's house. Another officer is there, and he says, please take him into custody. And you know what's crazy to me? What's crazy to me is that they don't cuff Brian. They don't cuff him. And you know what? It's so funny because even Brian, a little bit later when he is taken to the police station to be questioned by homicide detectives, he even says like, oh, why didn't you cuff me? How come you haven't cuffed me? And I think it's weird. I would have put that man in cuffs. He just dismembered somebody the other day. And their reason for not putting him in cuffs is because he's being cooperative. I would have put that man in some handcuffs, okay? They take Brian. Brian is now going to sit for his interview, but first, they interview his parents. Yeah, they interview Terry and Brian Sr. Terry is interviewed first, and in that moment, Terry realizes that, oh, Brian's car was randomly stuck at the boat ramp in the pond. I think the gears are working for Terry that like, oh, my son wasn't stuck. He wasn't going for a drive. He was disposing of potential evidence. Terry also in that moment remembered that there was a red substance on the back of Brian's car. Where did the red substance come from? And now that she has found this human head and hands inside her son's closet, she now realizes this is this man's blood on the back of my son's car. And it probably makes her wonder, where's the rest of the body? You can see in the interview, like once that is all starting to click for Terry, she then is asked by the homicide detectives to go over the events of the last few days of finding Brian's car, finding the human head, all that. Terry relays to the officers again that while she was going through Brian's room, she found a wad of plastic bags in his closet, and it felt wet, and it had maggots in it. Tara decided to then put the bundle of bags inside the sink. You know, she's a mom. She's a little curious. She goes through the bag, and that's when she finds a human head and hand. That has to be in bold lettering, or how you ever want to shout it in bold lettering or whatever. A human head and hands. You think about it. Could you imagine finding a human head and hands in your son's room? I couldn't imagine. I love crime and all, but like, I couldn't imagine. She finds this human head and hands. She calls her husband, and then that's when the events of her calling her husband. And next, Brian Sr. is interviewed. Brian Sr. remembers the night as well of his son's car getting stuck at the pond at the boat ramp. To be nice, Brian Sr. feels as though his son is depressed or is pretty sad. So he's like, all right, well, let me try to cheer him up by cleaning out his car for him. During the cleanup of his car, Brian Sr. finds a wallet. Not only a wallet, he finds a butcher's knife. He opens the wallet and he's going through it, and he finds somebody's social security card, their ID, their workplace information, and it's all this man named Warren Burns. He calls his son, Brian Sr. calls his son and says, why do you have this man's random wallet in your car? And Brian Jr. says, oh, I found it and I was going to turn it into the police. Brian Sr. is like, okay, believing that his son is just trying to be a good person. Brian Sr. then hangs up with his son. Click. And then he calls the workplace that Warren Burns sometimes work at for temp. And they say, oh, Warren has been missing. Warren has been missing for a few days now. And that's when Brian Sr. starts to trip fucking balls, because he's like, why does my son have a butcher knife and a missing man's wallet in his car? What the fuck is going on right now? As he's trying to put all these pieces together, Brian Sr. then gets a hysterical call from his wife saying, you need to get home right now. You need to get home right now because I just found a dismembered head and hands in our son's fucking closet. You need to get home. We need to handle this right now. We need to call the police. She's hysterical. She's screaming at the top of her lungs on this phone, crying, everything. And he's like, I'm coming. And by the way, Brian's family, they have some land. So like the dad isn't really too far. He's just like outside cleaning out his car, like I think near their garage or something. Once he comes into the home, Brian Sr. confirms that there is a human head and hands in the sink, and he decides to say, we need to call the police. We gotta do something. And they also in this moment realize that we need to also call Brian to get him back home. And we need to tell him some elaborate story to get him to come back here so he can talk to the police and confess to his crime. You know, like I said earlier, they get the younger brother to call him saying like, hey, bro, I need my car. Because he was borrowing his younger brother's car. I guess they was going to put the car in some rice or something. I don't know. I don't think it was going to work after it was fully submerged in the pond. And I'll show you the pictures of it being fully submerged in a pond. Terry's interview is over. Brian Sr.'s interview is over. Brian Jr. interview starts to rock off. And his interview is, I will say it's very concerning. I wouldn't expect this from somebody unless they are more of a fanatic for something. And you can tell that he's very much a fanatic for murder. It's very, I have a loss for words because it's just very concerning. Because I truly love true crime and everything. I love, when I was younger, I used to watch Forensic Files until now. And I used to do a lot of true crime podcasts, everything, YouTube videos. And now I'm doing mine. But I never was this crazy about murder to try it out to see if I could get away with murder. No amount of true crime that I watch makes me want to murder somebody. I'm more into like, why did you do that? Is it because you don't like your mom? Did you kill 15 women because you didn't like your mom? Like, I'm into that. I'm into the psychological background of everything. He's like, I want to know what it feels like. And I'm going to tell you about his interview. Brian is actually very excited in his interview process of murdering Warren Barnes. In moments through his interview, I'll put a little video of him laughing and giggling with officers and trying to say where he went wrong.
Somewhat traveled road, eventually someone with the windows down is going to smell something off. The police have a nose for that type of thing. They're trained to be able to identify the smell of a corpse. So that's where the Ripper idea came from, because a Ripper will wash away a lot of evidence. Rippers are quite tricky. And obviously that was botched.
Immediately, Brian's interview starts off with him confessing to the murder of Warren Barnes. What Brian does is that he assumes that he's only going to get 15 years for the murder of Warren Barnes, or 20, the max.
So, because I'm already going to jail for this 15 years probably.
I have no idea.
Because
We're at the beginning.
it's murder. I mean, I'm going to jail for 20, probably. But, so I figure, why fight it?
And I'm assuming that he thinks he can do 15, 20 years. Detectives look at him and be like, yeah, we don't really know about that yet. Why don't you just tell us what led you to being here today? Brian is very excited at this moment, and he starts to now run down the last 2 days of how he got now in the office of the homicide unit. On February 27th, it was a full moon. Brian decided to go for a drive. On this drive, Brian decides it's a great night to kill someone, and hopefully he finds a homeless person or a sex worker. Brian blames him wanting to do this on a depressive moment that he's having. He goes on later to say that he has a depressive disorder, but I think that's bullshit. While driving, Brian drives by a bridge, and it's more like an overpass when I saw the pictures or video, and he sees this clump of stuff. The clump of stuff that he sees is Warren Burns sleeping under a bridge. During all this, Brian is drawing a diagram of the bridge, the road, where he found Warren's body and everything. Seeing Warren under the bridge, because actually he also explains that at night you can't see nothing under that bridge. So he is pretty lucky in this moment to be attacking Warren Burns. Well, to be murdering Warren Burns. He walks over to Warren Burns with a butcher knife that he took from his home. He realized, this is it. I get to kill somebody. This is it. He puts on 3 layers of gloves, makes sure his knife is ready, and he walks over to Warren, who is sleeping, by the way. He pulls open Warren's sleeping bag and starts stabbing Warren's neck ruthlessly. And the first thing Brian says that Warren did is that Warren started to panic. He started yelling, "Why are you doing this? Who are you? Why? Stop." But Brian just kept stabbing his neck. In this moment of Brian's interview, Brian decides to do a demonstration on the floor of how he was stabbing Warren's neck.
Panicking at first, in his old man voice, he was saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Why? Why?" And I said, "I've been wanting to do this for a long time." And I just kept on stabbing his neck. Is it okay if I do a demonstration?
Oh, yeah.
This is him. I was straddled on top of him like this.
Okay.
Then he confesses to officers that during this time I was making animalistic sounds as well. He also admits that he didn't even break a sweat when he killed Warren Burns. He thought it would be actually very hard to kill a homeless man, and it wasn't. During all this, he's giggling, he's laughing, like these 2 homicide detectives are his friends. Once Brian is done killing Warren Burns, he strips him of his clothing. He cuts open Warren's stomach, so he disembowels him. He makes this weird comment during his interview that when he cut open Warren's stomach, his insides were all pink and jiggly. After he moves on from his stomach, he goes to Warren's head and he decides to destroy Warren's eyes by stabbing them up. They're just non-existent. They're gone. Next, Brian cuts off Warren's hands and places them in bags. Then Brian cuts off Warren's left arm, then his right arm, and he leaves them there under the bridge. Also leaves his body under the bridge too at first. We'll come back to that. Now he takes Warren's head that he has cut off. He puts it in an old pizza box in his car. Makes me wonder, what's his reason for doing that? Once he had his head and hands in separate containers, he decided to drive home. And once he was home, he decided to clean the knife that he was using, and he threw away any evidence that he could and put his bloody clothes in the washing machine on high so they could sanitize and remove any of the blood. Police are wondering, so what did you do with the rest of his body? Like, is it still at the bridge? Did you take it with you? Brian said that he actually had plans to take Warren's head and put it in a sealed bucket and put it somewhere in a ditch. And the same thing for his hands. He decided he wanted to put them in a sealed bucket and put it in a ditch somewhere else. So they're in 2 different places. Brian goes on to confess that he always wanted to know what it felt like to cut somebody up. He talks about what he did with the rest of Warren's body. Even though at first Brian was going to leave the rest of Warren's body at the bridge, but Brian just got a little paranoid. He noticed that he had a cut in his gloves, and he thought that he would have left some type of partial print at the crime scene. So he decides to get back in his car and drive to the bridge. He picks up Warren's body, like his torso and his leg. He puts it in the trunk of his car, goes to the boat ramp where the pond is. During this moment of time, I noticed watching his interview is that Brian doesn't say Warren's name at all, other than the first time when he said, like, oh, I killed that guy that was missing. Other than that, he does not say Warren's name at all. He even makes a comment about police not caring about sex workers or homeless men, so he could have and definitely would have gotten away with it if he just didn't bring the head and the hands home. Police are trying to keep Brian going, so they then ask him like a random question, kind of like out of left field. They say like, how long have you felt this way about wanting to kill somebody? Brian admits that he has been feeling the urge to kill somebody for about a year now. He's been looking up things to try to make that happen. He looked up home invasions. He looked up how people would react to home invasions, how people would react to being stuck up by knife point, I guess you could say. Brian gives detectives every bit of information they need, and they don't really have to work a lot to pull it out of him. They just make it seem like they're very intrigued about what Brian wants to do and is into. They even ask Brian a question about like his past. They ask him like, okay, well, in your past, have you ever hurt animals or anything? And while they're asking these questions, they're trying to establish like, is this kid sane? Is he insane? Could he try to get an insanity defense? And during all this, you can tell that Brian is not insane. He's not crazy. He is right as rain. And he's very excited and proud of himself that he was able to kill somebody. And now he thinks that he's not going to get that much time, which is 15 to 20 years in prison. But that's actually not the case. During this time, when they're trying to keep Brian going, they ask Brian, have you ever killed any animals in your life? And he says, yes. I killed a cat one time. I killed a black cat. I took it, dismembered it, and took the head of the cat and put it in a box. That sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? It sounds like what he did to that cat, he did to Warren Burns. Remember, he put Warren Burns' head in a pizza box that the family had for dinner a couple nights ago. We're going to talk about what happened at the boat ramp, basically from Brian's account. Remember I said Brian thought that he cut his glove. He thought he left a partial print, so he went back to the bridge. He took Warren's body with him, put it in his trunk, and he tried to reverse into the boat ramp where it would be closest to the water so he could take Warren Burns' body, take it out of his trunk, put it in the water and let it drift down the pond. He was able to do that, but what happened is his car got stuck because he only has a front wheel drive car. Jesus, that was hard to say. My mouth doesn't work sometimes. Oh my God. He only has a front wheel drive car. So his car didn't have the power to get up the boat ramp, and it started to slowly roll back into the water where he couldn't get control of it, and he ended up in the water. The body is now floating down the pond, and that's when he freaks out and realizes, I have to call help. I am panicking right now. And that's where we come back full circle to the point of him stopping the bystander let him use his phone, and him calling his parents. And the police coming there and writing off the blood on the back of his car as nothing. After Brian is interviewed, he is now booked for first-degree murder. He is to the jail to wait for trial, prison, whatever, trial and all that. So while they're trying to get more information or evidence about Brian, or just corroborating stories about Brian's mental health, his obsession with murder, detectives decide that they're going to interview all of Brian's friends, and Brian's friends actually say like, yeah, Brian would make jokes about murdering somebody all the time. What? He would make jokes about murdering somebody all the time, make jokes about hurting animals, and they didn't take it serious. None of them wanted to see Brian as a dangerous person. They just thought that he just had a lot of dark humor. Yeah, dark humor is good and all, I can see it, but I also see that as a young adult, you never want to believe that your friends are capable of murder or something dangerous or something so terrible as murder. You hear your friends talk and laugh and giggle about murder or any dark humorous joke, you never believe that like, oh, this person is going to kill somebody. But I think there were signs, because the rumor has it around the friend group is that Brian has been killing cats around the neighborhood and cats were going missing. Brian supposedly was keeping a journal of all his favorite serial killers, all their kills, all their background stories, and all their methods of killing and what their psychopathy was. And he also was able to create an alphabet that only he could understand, just like the Zodiac Killer. And I feel as though if your friends are telling you some freaky, weird shit, believe them. Believe them. Don't take it for granted. Believe them. Like if your friend talks about like suicidal thoughts, believe them. It's just same thing. If your friend keeps talking about he wants to murder somebody, believe it. After they find more evidence about Brian being sane, and to corroborate him always talking about murder and wanting to do it, it's now time for Brian's trial. Brian pled guilty to the murder of Warren Burns for the reason of insanity. The jury decided that they were going to reject his insanity plea, and they found him guilty. They found him guilty on 1 count of evidence tampering. They found him guilty on 2 counts of tampering with a deceased body, and they found him guilty on 1 count of first-degree murder. Can I get a round of applause? Please, thank you. Thank you. Brian was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. He is currently at Bureau Vista Correctional Complex in Colorado Springs. They recently did an interview with Brian, and he says that he misses video games and internet and wish he didn't get caught. He's not remorseful about killing Warren Burns. Yeah, that should show you what type of person he is. Let's end this on a good thing. The townspeople, more like the bridal shop owner, she decided to get a metal plaque for Warren Burns, and they also got a statue that references Warren and everything. The statue is like a chair with book flowers and a tree next to it. It's really nice. It shows that like people care. People are caring about these individuals that are in the town. And Warren Burns wasn't just some random homeless man. He had people that cared about him until this fucking 19-year-old boy decided to come up and kill him while he was sleeping. Like, oh my God. So that is our case for today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Bye. Did I say this was Chloroform and Chillz? Oh my goodness.